Wonderful. So I'm coming at this biostatistician involved in the design of a number of adaptive trials. So I'm going to talk about the adaptive trials. I've never done an adaptive trial where the goal was to improve the enrollment or treatment specifically for older adults. We've certainly done adaptive trials in diseases that affect primarily older adults, but the adaptations haven't been driven by these factors. It seems like there's certainly a potential for that if the goal is to improve the clinical trial, improve the enrollment of older adults. What I'm going to do is walk through a little bit about adaptive trials. I'll give a couple examples very briefly of adaptive trials, and then some potential ideas that could be used. So an adaptive design is one that prospectively is set up to have moving parts. And the path the trial takes is determined by the data. If data accrues that shows one of the arms is not as effective as another arm, you might increase the randomization to the better arm. This is all done prospectively. If it turns out that there's a subset of the patient population at a higher risk or with higher adverse events, you could stop enrolling that patient population. These are all things during the course of the trial that by design, by construction of the protocol, happen when certain data falls in a condition that pushes you down the map, as this really nice cartoon from JAMA shows. Why is this promising? The promising aspect of this is the traditional way you design a trial is you construct the trial design with everything you knew before the trial started. If there were other things you knew before the trial, you would have designed a different trial. You would have enrolled different patients. You might have tried different arms, more arms, a bigger sample size, a smaller sample size. These are things that the promise of an adaptive design is during the course of the trial, you may learn things to which you can have the design be more efficient, more effective in how it goes forward. Like, had I known that, I would have designed a different trial. So the two really important parts of an adaptive trial are, what are those moving parts, the dynamic aspects of the design that can be altered, the key criteria of the design, and then what are the mechanisms for actually learning this? And these are typically statistical algorithms that then drive these adaptive decisions. So the hope, of course, is that we design better, more efficient, more effective clinical trials in getting the right answers and treating patients more effectively. So very quickly, a couple adaptive trials. The DAWN trial was a thrombectomy trial versus standard of care drug therapy. And these devices, these clot-clearing devices, were approved from 0 to 8 hours. The question is, are they still effective when the patient is between up to 24 hours since last seen well? Maybe the course of the disease has gone and these clot-clearing devices are no longer effective. Maybe they're detrimental. So this was a trial to determine if they're effective. There was the expectation that if you could get the right patient, this would be effective. Those that have clinical mismatch between symptoms and size of stroke, there's still brain to be saved. It was expected before the trial starts that the efficacy of these may depend on the size of the stroke. The trial was designed to have a sample size between 200 and 500 patients, but at any interim analysis, every 50 patients, starting at 150, 200, 250, the enrollment criteria could be restricted to smaller stroke sizes if the algorithm showed that the device is not effective in the larger sizes. And this could happen anytime during the course of the trial. So this was an enrichment design that the data could change the enrollment criteria. It turned out that the device was incredibly effective in all patients and all stroke sizes. So you can read the New England Journal article about this. It shows a summary of the modified Rankin score. It was very effective, and it didn't actually enrich. So the algorithm was there, the interims took place. Now the trial stopped at 200 patients, the earliest time possible, instead of 500. So that adaptation happened, but the enrichment didn't happen. Icecap is a trial funded by the NIH. It is a trial for individuals that suffer cardiac arrest. They're resuscitated. They're brought to the emergency room, to the hospital. The idea is that hypothermia, putting that patient in a hypothermic state, may improve their neurological status. You slow down the cascade that happens with heat, and it may improve these patients. It's actually standard of care in many hospitals. But there's a lot of things unknown of this. There's no large trial showing that this is actually effective. And the duration of cooling, nobody knows how, I shouldn't say, it's unknown how long to cool individuals in this situation. So the trial design has 10 possible durations. Patients as standard of care are put on the hypothermia. They are then randomized to how long they're kept in this state, from anywhere from 6 hours to 72 hours. The trial starts randomizing with 12, 24, and 48 hours, and then response adaptive randomization is used every 50 patients. So the randomization probabilities to the 10 durations are set every 50 patients to put patients on the durations that are more likely to give better neurological outcomes. It's an 1,800 patient trial. They enroll two subgroups of patients they're interested in shockable and non-shockable rhythms. The randomization probabilities are different as a function of those patient characteristics. So we'll be randomizing patients from shockable rhythms and non-shockable differently, and different as the trial progresses. So this is the adaptation of the trial. The conclusions can be different in the two subgroups, and even the arms that are used can be different. We could stop for futility or success within the different subgroups as well. ReMap Cap is a trial in COVID-19. It also uses response adaptive randomization. Patients are classified into moderate or severe. In the trial, they're also classified by their D-dimer.
Let me tell you, you got 2 minutes to go.
Yep, D-dimer levels. Multiple therapies are given, but response adaptive randomization across the therapies are used and updated every 2 weeks during the course of the trial to change the randomizations to treat patients better and learn more effectively. So these are several adaptations that could be used. So potentials: you could design trials where the accruing data alters whether you enroll older adults. You could start enrolling younger populations. If it's demonstrating safety, it opens up the older populations. And this could remove some of the barriers that you initially, when the trial starts, you don't know if it's appropriate. You could have randomization probabilities across your therapies that are different for older adults, comorbidities, than it is for younger adults in that situations, customizing the therapies and treating older adults better, which is more likely to get them enrolled. And of course, you could do enrichment similar to shockable, non-shockable stroke size, that conclusions and adaptations are specific to those age group, could potentially lead to more desirable trials and more efficient trials for older adults. I'll stop there. Thanks, Bob.